Hello, this is practice at exercise 3.5 printGrid. The problem reads, write a method named printGrid that accepts two integer parameters, rows and cols. The output is a comma-separated grid of numbers where the first parameter, rows, represents the number of rows of the grid, and the second parameter, cols, represents the number of columns. The number counts up from 1 to rows times cols. The output are displayed in column major order, meaning that the numbers shown increase sequentially down each column and wrap to the top of the next column to the right once the bottom of the current column is reached. Assume that rows and cols are greater than 0. Here are some example calls to your method and their expected results. Okay, so we'll first start by defining our method. So, the first thing we're going to say is public void, and then print grid, and then we need our int row and int col, right? Okay, and then next, we're going to have two things that are going to represent our rows and columns. So first, we'll do our rows first. So we're going to say for int I equals 1, and then when I is less than or equal to row, and then I plus plus, we're going to increment through that. And then what's going to happen is for each row, the end value is going to be calculated. So we're going to represent that with int end. And then this value is going to determine the last number to print into the current row. And the formula that we're going to use is I plus row times col minus 1. Okay, so that's going to make sure that the end value is set so that the column major order is maintained. So think of it this way: I is going to be a starting number, and then the formula is going to add enough numbers to reach to the end of the current column, and that way it's going to make sure all the numbers are wrapped so that it goes on to the next column. Okay, right? And then our inner loop is going to be our rows. So 4, and then that's going to be j. And then first we're going to set that equal to I. So we're going to assume that it starts the same way it does for our rows. So j starts at I, and then we're going to increment that. So same thing, j and end like that, and then j plus equals row, just like that, right? And then the loop's gonna continue until until j is greater than end, and then it's going to continue to print numbers down the column, and it's going to move to the next column. And this is what our inner loop's gonna look like. And now we need to print all the numbers. So inside we're just going to write system.out.print j. Okay, and then we'll say if j is not equal to end, then in that case we're gonna do system.out, and then we're gonna add that comma right there. So this means that each number, meaning j, is printed, and that's going to be followed by comma and a space, unless the j is the last number. So that's what we check for. And we need to move to the next line, right? So afterwards, we can break out of this loop, and then I'm missing our parentheses here, and then we just need to move on to the next line, which will be system.out print ln. Make sure the ln's there so that it moves on to the next line. And yeah, I think that should be the solution. Let's run it. And yeah, all our test cases are passed. And that's all for this problem, and we'll see you next time.